glorified her ex-husband. She made him the bad guy.
The divorce would have never even been out if he didn't file the motion to use our full and legal names.
Then she had to go and she had to get new energy. What was she calling him? Her apple pies? Have you seen my apple pies?
Did you see my apple pie?
Oh my God, you did a love scene with Leonardo DiCaprio.
How was it shooting those scenes with Leo?
It was just work.
Y'all, pause everything, because what Jaguar Wright just ripped open has the internet rethinking every fairy tale it ever believed about Hollywood romance. What once looked like a quiet, elegant love story is now being recast as something far more chilling, far more strategic, and allegedly far more artificial than anyone imagined. And if even a fraction of this holds weight, this isn't a breakup unraveling. This is a carefully built fantasy shattering in real time. According to Jaguar Wright, the picture-perfect connection between Teyana Taylor and Aaron Pierre wasn't sparked by destiny or attraction. Allegedly, it was constructed, curated, marketed. Jaguar didn't hint at it. She declared it boldly. In Hollywood, romance only survives if it sells. And this one? She claims it was tailored to fit every publicity formula down to the last detail. Then the energy shifts. Jaguar suggests that Aaron Pierre's climb to fame leaned heavily on the admiration and support of Black women, yet his private choices may tell a much more complicated story. Names begin to circulate. Subtle evidence gets teased. And suddenly, the internet is replaying old clips, old photos, old encounters that now feel unsettling. A public appearance that lingered too long. A kiss that crossed a line. A caption that hinted at something deeper than chance. Allegedly. And then Jaguar sharpens the knife. She wonders whether Teyana, fresh out of a chaotic, very public divorce, needed more than healing. A storyline. A polished comeback. A powerful distraction. Something loud enough to bury the rumors, the whispers, the questions that never stopped trailing her name. And if Jaguar is right, Aaron wasn't just romance, he was protection. What makes this sting is the suggestion that every smile was scripted, every photo staged, every moment designed to keep fans believing in something that might never have existed. And if this was all performance, then the heartbreak isn't the separation, it's the manipulation of faith. So now the real question isn't, are they still a couple? The real question is, was any of it real to begin with?
Shout out to Teyana Taylor! Her contract is up! Her and Aaron, I almost called him Hernandez. That's Stefan Diggs, my bad. That's not, Stefan Diggs is Aaron Hernandez, okay? Aaron Pierre, okay? What's that song? Mufasa? What's that song, Mufasa?
Really?
Sure.
Yeah, that's Mufasa.
Mufasa. Aaron.
Strap in. Because what's unraveling right now isn't romance. It's a slow-burning crash between reputation, power, and a truth that refuses to stay hidden. This is the kind of moment where smiles start to feel practiced, timelines begin to fracture, and the silence from those involved grows louder than any denial ever could. And standing at the center of this storm is Jaguar Wright, speaking not in whispers, not with caution, but like someone who believes the mask has already been torn away. Allegedly, Jaguar didn't go live to entertain. She came to interrupt. To dismantle a story that had been carefully engineered and sold as authentic, magnetic, and aspirational. According to her, the pairing of Teyana Taylor and Aaron Pierre wasn't born from spontaneity, it was orchestrated. A deliberate alignment. The kind Hollywood has refined for generations. The kind that looks natural enough to captivate, yet controlled enough to disappear quietly once the purpose is served. From the outside, it seemed perfect. Two rising forces. Two striking figures. Two careers ascending in parallel. The images were elegant. The appearances calculated. The chemistry felt intentional. And that, Jaguar says, is exactly where the warning signs live. Because in this industry, nothing happens by accident. Timing is currency. And when every piece falls into place too neatly, someone is clearly managing the board behind the curtain. Jaguar claims that Aaron Pierre's ascent placed him. The stillness that followed her words didn't feel random. It felt intentional. Like the pause in a courtroom when everyone senses the next line will hit harder than the last. Because once the idea of orchestration entered the conversation, every past moment began to distort. Smiles looked calculated. Appearances felt arranged. Even the silence from those involved no longer read as privacy, it started to resemble strategy. Allegedly, Jaguar Wright didn't stop at questioning intentions. She went further, hinting that unseen hands were far more active than fans ever imagined. According to her, relationships like this are never isolated. They pass through publicists, managers, image consultants, and quiet negotiations that never surface online. She suggested that when two public figures align at the precise moment their reputations need shelter, coincidence is rarely the explanation. It's choreography. What unsettled people most was how she defined purpose. Not as love, but as damage control. Allegedly, this was about stabilizing narratives, about shifting headlines, about making sure that when one storyline began unraveling, another one arrived to cushion the fall. And if that's true, then the romance wasn't the headline. It was the shield. As Jaguar's remarks spread, timelines did what they always do. They excavated. Old interviews reappeared. Past quotes were lifted, rearranged, and reshaped into something darker. Supporters who once defended the relationship began questioning what they'd ignored. Others stood firm, insisting not every story has to be cynical. But the fracture was already there. Doubt had crossed the threshold, and doubt rarely leaves quietly. Allegedly, the unease deepened when people noticed how tightly controlled the exposure had been. No chaotic candid shots. No awkward tension. No visible strain. Everything appeared polished, curated, protected. And while that looked ideal on the surface, Jaguar suggested it was also unnatural. Real relationships spill. They falter. They crack. This one, she implied, never did. Then came the comparison that shifted the entire atmosphere. Jaguar pointed to past celebrity pairings that followed the same trajectory. Sudden debut, heavy promotion, mutual advantage, silent exit, careers untouched, narratives refreshed. The message wasn't hidden. According to her, this wasn't innovation. It was repetition. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. The tragedy in this version of events isn't scandal, it's replaceability. Allegedly, people become assignments. Feelings become instruments. And once the function is fulfilled, everyone is expected to exit without questions. Jaguar suggested this is why these breakups rarely come with clarity. The conclusion is managed just as carefully as the opening act. As the discussion evolved, sympathy began drifting in unexpected directions. Because if this was arranged, then everyone involved was navigating pressure. Pressure to perform happiness. Pressure to protect brands. Pressure to remain silent even as speculation grew louder. And inside that silence, the audience wrote its own endings. Allegedly, Jaguar hinted that sustaining an illusion carries a cost. That living inside a storyline authored by others slowly corrodes authenticity. And when viewers sense that erosion, their reactions sharpen. Sometimes disappointment, sometimes anger, sometimes betrayal. Because fans don't simply follow careers, they attach emotionally. What made this moment heavier was the suggestion that the full truth may never emerge. Jaguar didn't promise evidence. She didn't claim final proof. She framed everything as vigilance, as caution, as a reminder that not everything marketed as intimacy is driven by emotion. Some of it is driven by optics. As reactions multiplied, the narrative began moving on its own. Comment sections transformed into courtrooms. Clips were replayed frame by frame. Glances were decoded. Timelines were reconstructed. And through it all, the absence of explanation only intensified speculation. Silence became interpreted as guilt by some, discretion by others. Allegedly, Jaguar ended by questioning why honesty in this industry is punished while performance is rewarded. Why authenticity becomes a liability once it stops generating value. And why audiences are asked to accept endings without ever understanding origins. Her tone wasn't victorious. It was exhausted. Like someone who had watched this cycle replay too many times. The emotional weight didn't crash in suddenly. It settled slowly. Not as shock, but as disillusionment. Because if the claims carry even partial truth, then what was sold as connection was actually convenience. And that realization cuts deeper than any breakup headline ever could. By the time the conversation reached its height, the focus had completely shifted. This was no longer about romance. It was about perception, about construction, about how easily reality can be edited, and how allegedly, Jaguar positioned this not as personal criticism, but as a verdict against a system that prizes optics over honesty. She implied that individuals become trapped inside stories they never fully agreed to inhabit. That once a narrative generates value, it's guarded relentlessly. And when it stops being useful, it's quietly dismantled, leaving the people inside it to face the aftermath alone. As digital conversation intensified, the story began to resemble a trial. Evidence wasn't tangible, it was behavioral. Timing, patterns, absence. Every movement dissected like testimony. Every pause weighed like hesitation. And the refusal to respond directly only amplified the belief that something significant was being calculated. Allegedly, Jaguar hinted that endings in scenarios like this are rarely dramatic. They're gradual, controlled, reframed as distance or mutual understanding. The objective isn't truth, it's containment. To let the story dissolve without ever naming what it truly was. And in doing so, protect the only thing that matters, perception. The emotional impact of that realization hit many with unexpected force. Because it suggested that closure was never part of the plan. That there would be no confession, no revelation, no moment of honesty to tie the narrative together. Only a slow fade and a silent agreement to move forward without answers. And still, the sorrow lingered. Because even if the relationship was engineered, the people involved remained human. Still navigating exposure. Still absorbing judgment. Allegedly, Jaguar acknowledged that contradiction, the tension between agency and pressure, between choice and obligation, between benefiting from a machine while being slowly consumed by it. As the discussion reached its most charged moment, the focus expanded beyond any single couple. It became about belief, about how often audiences are asked to trust what they're shown, about how effortlessly narratives are sold when they reflect what people want to believe. And about how devastating it is to realize that hope itself can be curated. The tragedy here isn't that affection may have been staged. It's that sincerity has become so scarce that people cling to it wherever they think they find it. And when that illusion collapses, it leaves more than disappointment behind. It leaves weariness, distrust, emotional retreat. Allegedly, Jaguar's final implication was the most haunting of all. That this pattern will continue. With new faces, new timelines, new aesthetics. Because the formula works. And as long as it works, it will be repeated. The audience will be invited to believe again, to invest again, to feel again. When the conversation finally cooled, what remained wasn't anger, it was contemplation. A quiet reckoning with how stories are built and consumed. With how convincingly sincerity can be imitated. And with how fragile the line between connection and construction has become. No confirmations followed. No denials arrived. Only a lingering awareness that something fundamental had shifted. That the story, whatever its truth, would never be viewed the same way again. And that may be the most lasting consequence of all. Because once the curtain lifts, even briefly, it never fully falls back into place. Every future appearance will now be filtered through doubt. Every smile examined, every silence interpreted, and whether deserved or not, that scrutiny becomes part of the legacy. This wasn't a disclosure. This was an aftershock. Brace yourself, because what's about to unfold may completely change how you see everything that came before. Allegedly, this entire storyline, the smiles, the premieres, the flawless snapshots, was nothing more than a carefully engineered mirage. Every kiss, every laugh, every perfect moment may have been a deliberate move, a strategic piece placed on a board far larger than romance. Jaguar Wright claims that beneath the glitter sits calculation, planning, and quiet control. Pierre wasn't simply involved with Teyana Taylor. He was stepping into a script designed by forces beyond either of them. And allegedly, Teyana herself may not have been a passive participant in shaping the illusion. Fans who once believed in the fairy tale are now being forced to re-examine every viral image, every affectionate interview, every glowing headline. Was it connection or presentation? Were those smiles born from feeling or assembled for effect? Jaguar suggests this isn't unusual in Hollywood. It's architecture, a system built to manufacture emotion and distribute it to millions. And when that system decides a storyline has served its purpose, heartbreak isn't a mistake. It's part of the design. The most devastating element? Allegedly, the human cost. Genuine emotions confined inside scripted roles. Manipulation masked as devotion. And an audience celebrating illusions, unaware that the story they championed may have been constructed from the very beginning. If Jaguar's claims hold weight, what we label love online is often an agreement made in secrecy, a collaboration between ambition, branding, and public perception. So now the question becomes impossible to avoid. Are we witnessing affection, or are we watching reputations being safeguarded and shaped? Are these two people bound by emotion, or simply characters inside a carefully maintained Hollywood storyline? Share your thoughts below, tap that like button if this shook you, and spread this video to pull back the curtain before the next chapter vanishes into polished silence. Because if there's truth hiding here, the world deserves to see it.